They said I was too old. They said the company needed younger blood with fresher ideas. After 18 years of building that software empire from scratch, I was tossed out like yesterday's trash. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I just smiled, packed up my office, and walked away. 3 weeks later, when their entire server system collapsed, that same CEO who mocked me was on his knees begging for help. I had given everything to that company. Nearly 2 decades of my life. I poured myself into every line of code, every late-night bug fix, every weekend spent hunched over a monitor when my family was asleep. I wasn't just an employee, I was part of its DNA. The framework that kept the servers alive wasn't something you could just read in a manual. It was my baby, my creation. I still remember the long nights in the early years when the company had no name, no money, nothing but ambition. We worked out of a basement with cheap coffee and second-hand computers, and we made it work. I stayed loyal through the good times and the bad. When the board announced a new CEO, I thought maybe this was a chance for growth. I had no idea what was coming. The man walked in like he owned the world, slick hair, expensive suit, shoes that probably cost more than my first paycheck. He stood in front of the team at that very first meeting, and with a smug little grin, he said the words that made my blood boil. "We're bringing in younger talent with fresh perspectives. The future belongs to them." He didn't say my name, but his eyes drifted to me as if he might as well have pointed a finger. I sat there stone-faced. My stomach churned, my throat tightened, every instinct screamed at me to stand up and shout, to remind him who had built the very company he was standing in. But I didn't give him the satisfaction. I forced a smile, nodded once, and left that meeting with my pride intact. I walked back to my office, closed the door, and stared at the walls for a long moment. This was the room I had practically lived in. Photos of my kids, awards that no one ever paid attention to, little sticky notes with solutions scribbled on them that had saved us from disaster countless times. I put everything into a box quietly. No scene, no drama, just silence. When I walked out, people avoided eye contact. Some gave me sympathetic looks. Others were already shifting loyalties toward their shiny new boss. I carried my box out to the parking lot, placed it in the trunk of my car, and drove away. No one followed me. That was it. 18 years gone in a heartbeat. The first couple of weeks after that were strange. I didn't know what to do with myself. No deadlines. No emergencies. No pings at 3 in the morning about a critical bug. For a while, I just sat around the house, drinking coffee and staring at the ceiling. The anger slowly started to build. Not the kind that makes you yell, but the kind that sits in your chest like a burning coal, glowing hotter every day. They had cut me off like I was disposable. Like I hadn't been the one keeping their foundation steady. They didn't even bother with a thank you. Here's the truth I knew, and they didn't. That system they relied on, the one I had personally designed and patched and tweaked over the years, wasn't a simple machine. It was like a living organism, full of quirks and workarounds only I understood. Fresh perspectives don't mean much when you're staring at a server crash that threatens to erase millions in client data. Without me, the whole thing was doomed. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, the calls started. At first it was a former coworker, panic in his voice. "The server's down. Nobody knows what to do. We can't even access backups." I listened silently. Then another call came. Then another. The tone was always the same: panic, desperation, helplessness. And finally, the one I had been waiting for, the CEO himself. His voice was no longer smug. It was cracked, strained, almost pleading. "We need you. Please. The system is failing, and we're losing clients by the hour. I'll do whatever it takes. Just help us." I let him speak. I let him sweat. And when he finished, I gave him the line I had been rehearsing in my head for days. "Funny. I thought you had younger talent to handle all this." The silence on the other end was sweeter than any victory speech. I could have jumped back in right away, restored their servers, and gone back to the shadows. But no, that would have been too easy. Revenge is about balance. It's about letting them taste the bitterness they served you. So I told him my terms. I wouldn't come back as an employee. I wouldn't take orders from someone who once called me outdated. If they wanted me, it would be as a consultant, independent, free to choose my hours, my projects, my pay. And my pay would not be cheap. He stuttered. He hesitated. But in the end, he had no choice. Every hour the system stayed down, the company bled money and reputation. So he agreed. The next morning, I walked back into that office. Heads turned, whispers spread. The same people who had pitied me just weeks earlier now stared at me like I was a savior. The CEO avoided eye contact, his jaw clenched tight. He hated needing me, and I loved every second of it. I sat down at my old desk, well, not really mine anymore, and within hours I had the system breathing again. I rebuilt the server architecture, restored lost data, and secured everything so it wouldn't collapse so easily again. Every keystroke was a reminder that I was the one holding the power now. And every invoice I sent afterward made the CEO wince. He was paying me more than double my old salary, and there wasn't a single thing he could do about it. The sweetest moment came during a board meeting. The CEO, red-faced and uncomfortable, was forced to praise me in front of everyone. Our consultant saved us from a total disaster, he muttered. He couldn't even bring himself to say my name. The same board that had nodded along when I was pushed out now looked at me with respect, maybe even fear. They knew the truth. Without me, their empire crumbles. I didn't need their validation anymore. I already had my victory. Seeing that man swallow his pride, watching him sign off on checks that were twice my old salary, knowing he would never live down the mistake of firing me, that was revenge enough. Revenge doesn't always come in explosions or screaming matches. Sometimes it comes in silence, in patience, in letting arrogance dig its own grave. Sometimes the most satisfying payback is just reminding people of a truth they tried to forget. You don't throw away the person holding the keys to your kingdom. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell me in the comments what's the most satisfying workplace revenge you've ever seen. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this. Karma has a funny way of working, and you won't want to miss the next tale.